Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting of Tuesday, October 7th to order. If you'll join me in standing, the mayor will lead us in a prayer and the pledge.
Please bow with me. Lord, thank you once again for the wonderful city that we live in. Thank you for the staff that keeps it running smoothly. They're very conscientious of what they do, and it's a great little town to live in. We ask you to protect our first responders as they protect us on a daily basis, and lay your healing hands over the top of them and do what we can. We ask that all we do in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, can you please call the roll?
Here.
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 Here. If there's anyone in the audience that has something they'd like to speak about that is not on the agenda, if you could fill out one of these forms up front and give it to Clerk Haley, we'll get to that later on in the meeting. Mayor's report.
I got a few things that I attended in the last couple of weeks. It seems the events are starting to pick up again come the end of summer. But Advent Health put on a nice health fair downtown. First one they've done. They actually did it in four cities at one time, including Wauchula, Mount Park, and Lake Placid. Just kind of a great event. We had the legislative delegation, thanks to Representative Kaylee Tuck and Senator Aaron Grawl for coming down and listening to our ask, I guess if you want to call it that, for appropriations next year. And I think it's pretty successful. We'll see what happens. They've got a big ticket to cut through, but also thank you to Jared for putting together our presentation, and really appreciate what you've done, Jared. It's helped us in the past, and it's going to help us in the future. They had the Pink on the Circle. Diane Albritton did a cancer event. Was really successful, I think, and I think it's going to grow every year now that she's kind of got it organized. So it was a really nice event. Was able to go to the VFW. Chief was there, also Hoagland. Well, they had their 80th anniversary this week, and so we were able to present a proclamation and some other issues with that. But it's kind of neat to have an organization that survived 80 years and still going strong. Got to be careful when you go at lunch, though. If you're going to go back to work, you got to be real careful. But a good bunch of guys. We had the Children's Museum, which we'll hear from in just a few minutes, but did a very successful event. They put on a kids business program where the kids make items and they sell them, and they learn a lot about what the business is, and it was really neat because they needed a much bigger arena than what they got out of the rain and went to the Civic Center, and it was packed all day on Sunday from noon till 4, I believe it was. But it was really a good event. Let's see what else we got. And the fire department, congratulations to the fire department. We had the CFO of Florida, Inglio, I believe is his name. Ingoli, I'm sorry. Came down and gave notice to the fire department, said, hey, we want to hand out some checks to neighboring communities and to you guys. You have a day to put the program together, and the fire department put it together and did a good job. Had a great turnout for it. We were presented with $1.5 million check for our fire truck, and roughly $9,000 check for some safety equipment. Okeechobee County was here. I think they got $2 million. Highlands County was here. They got $500,000 for start of their Lake Placid fire station. So it was really kind of neat to see everybody kind of together at the firehouse, and did a good job putting that together. And thank you for doing that, and congratulations. An event coming up this weekend is the Hispanic Heritage Festival. Will be on Commerce on Sunday from, I believe, I think noon to 6 or something like that, or 1 to 6, but that'll be downtown this weekend. I also have one more proclamation, and this goes out to our fire department for Fire Prevention Week. So I'd like to go ahead, and if you guys would stand up and come up here. Get the fire department here. They're the guys that protect us. Proclamation, whereas the city of Sebring is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting our community, whereas fire remains a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, in the presence of lithium-ion batteries and many household devices increases unique fire risk. And whereas most of the electronics used in homes daily, including smartphones, tablets, laptops, power tools, e-bikes, e-scooters, and toys are powered with lithium-ion batteries, which if misused, damaged, or improperly charged can overheat, start a fire, or explode. And whereas the National Fire Protection Association reports an increase in battery-related fires, underscoring the need for public education on the safe use of lithium-ion batteries. And whereas residents should follow 3 key calls to action: buy only listed products, charge batteries safely, and recycle them responsibly to prevent battery-related fires. And whereas lithium-ion batteries store a large amount of energy in a small space, and improper use of overcharging, using off-brand chargers without safety certification, or exposing batteries to damage can result in a fire or explosion. And whereas the proper disposal and recycling of lithium-ion batteries help prevent environmental hazards and reduce fire risks in the home and community. And whereas the city of Sebring's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of fires through prevention, safety, education, and community outreach. And whereas the 2025 Fire Prevention Week theme is Charge into Fire Safety, Lithium-Ion Batteries in Your Home, serves as a reminder to the importance of using, charging, and recycling lithium-ion batteries safely to reduce the risk of fires in homes and communities. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, John Shoup, Mayor of the City of Sebring, do hereby recognize and proclaim October 5th through the 11th, 2025 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the city. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the Great Seal of the City of Sebring, Florida, the 7th day of October, the year of our Lord, 2025. So just be careful to be able to recycle, you can drop them off. Or skip a road. Yeah.
Skip a road.
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
You put me on the spot. So, yeah, with that being said, we don't just celebrate 1 week in October as fire prevention. We do it for the entire month. And throughout that month, we probably see, if not hundreds, thousands of kids either come through the firehouse and or us out in the community. So, again, this is huge for us. It gives us an opportunity to kind of show others that we don't just run calls, but we're also out there trying to teach prevention to our community. So, thank you for allowing us to this, and thank you for the proclamation.
Followed by Mr. Whitcomb.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's all I think.
Thank you for your service.
All right, moving on to council members' reports. Carlisle. School chat?
No.
Mr. Bishop.
Nothing to add.
No report.
All right, I have just one little thing. So, thank you to the fire department. With it being Fire Prevention Week, one of the schools that you guys went to was my son's daycare. It happened to be his first day of daycare, and he thinks firefighters and fire trucks are the greatest things on the planet. And so his very first day, he got to meet some firefighters and climb inside a fire truck, and he thought that was every day at daycare. So he had a great day. Thank you guys for that. And you taught him to stop, drop, and roll, so that's good. And then one other announcement: the Military Sea Service Museum is hosting the Steel Beach Picnic for the Navy's 250th anniversary. It's on Saturday, October 11th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's on 1402 Roseland Avenue, kind of right down on Kenilworth Boulevard. And contact is Fred Carino, who I think is going to speak later tonight. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments from the public on the consent agenda?
I have a
something I would like to discuss
Okay.
on the consent
right.
agenda. Actually, I'll just make a motion if that's all right.
Sure.
I move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 8C, line item 5.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Kathy, can you call the roll, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Colbert,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. All right, there's no old business. We're going to move on to new business. Item number 10A.
Do we need to do the consent agenda? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, continue.
I didn't table it. So this is a prime example of why we put this process in place, in my opinion. This is a vacant lot that someone is wanting to place a mobile home on. In my opinion, that's why we're doing this, to prevent this type of thing from happening. So I don't know if anybody want to discuss it any further, but I'm going to say that we deny this request.
It's a single family lot. It's one
It's a
lot.
vacant lot.
Okay.
In the efforts of being unilateral with our stance on other
Okay.
items.
So your stance would be that we would deny any new mobile homes. where
Correct.
One does not exist.
There is
already.
there is another one on the agenda that is a existing mobile home.
It's just a replacement.
Correct. No, it's not even replacement. They're just
It's just
hooking up the
hooking
new
up.
service.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have thoughts on that?
I agree with Roland.
All right. I move to deny the request that is presented to us tonight for 2341 West Jackson Street.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Kathy, can you call the roll, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Colbert,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. Okay. Now we will move on to new business, item number 10A. And, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Mr. Swain.
You have before you a proposed resolution 2025-23. This deals with utility rates and charges for your utility system, and it includes a 20% increase in sewer rates and a 5% increase in new service rates. And these rates, if approved, will take effect November 1, 2025.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public on this item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from council on this? We'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve resolution 2025-23.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Kathy?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Yes.
Henry, Colbert,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Bless you.
Okay, moving on to item number 10B, public hearing and ordinance number 1554. Mr. Swain?
Ordinance 1554 is entitled an ordinance of the city of Sebring, Florida, changing the zoning classification for a parcel that totals approximately 0.19 acres located at 3611 Kenilworth Boulevard from commercial district to 1 and 2 family district, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. Mr. Schmucker.
Mr. Schmucker, yes. Jeff Schmucker, Central Florida Regional Planning Council. We've got a small presentation. If you'd like us to go through the item again with you all.
Okay.
As that's coming up, I'll go ahead and get started. This is a request by Dewberry Engineering, and this is on behalf of property owner Denise Hamilton, requesting a rezoning on a 0.19 acre property located at 3611 Kenilworth Boulevard. Again, as the city attorney mentioned, it's a request from C1 to R2, and this is to allow the reconstruction of a home that was damaged following Hurricane Ian. Next slide. Just a few photos. This is a photo of the home on the property today. Next slide. This is also a photo of the home looking down Kenilworth Boulevard and the surrounding area. Next slide. And again, the home looking from the other direction, looking to the west. Next slide. So the future land use and zoning on the property today is an existing future land use of mixed use and zoning of C1 commercial. Next slide. And the request here is to go to a proposed rezoning of R2, 1 and 2 family residential. Next slide. So the proposed R2 zoning, this is consistent with the existing future land use of mixed use. Further, the property is serving as single-family residence. It is compatible with the area. You'll notice from the maps that you saw a second ago, the properties that are along Kenilworth Boulevard, they are commercial. But because this was a home that was looking to get reconstructed, the C1 zoning did not support that. So to allow them to reconstruct the home on the property, it needed a residential zoning. So although the properties directly across Kenilworth Boulevard are commercial, the rest of the block in that area is also the same residential zoning. In terms of impacts, no impacts. Staff doesn't identify any impacts. It's going to be the reconstruction of the home on the property, so nothing new than what was already on the property before this event happened. And I believe that's the extent of the presentation. If you have any other questions, we'll stand to answer those.
Any questions from the public on this? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from council? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve ordinance number 1554 on second final reading.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Kathy, can you call the roll?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Colchester,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, we're gonna move to item number 10C, code enforcement lien clearing presentation by attorney Matt Widener of the Widener Law Firm.
Mayor, council, and staff, good evening. Please allow me to introduce Matt Widener of the Widener Law Firm. Council directed code enforcement approximately a year ago to move forward with finding ways to hold property owners more accountable and hopefully to put some teeth in our liens. Through doing some research, Code Officer Romanek identified services offered by Mr. Widener's firm. Been very successful in several communities throughout Central Florida. As part of your package, you'll see an article from Florida Trends, I believe in 2022, and some success stories that they've had showcasing his firm's ability to provide a lien clearing service. He's got a presentation that he'll overview the process, an opportunity for some question and answers, and hopefully give us some insight as to how we might make this a good fit for our community and our code enforcement endeavors. Thank you so much, Mr. Widener.
Thank you. Good afternoon or good evening to everyone. Stand up. It is a sort of fixed presentation, but please jump in and interrupt me with any questions anytime anybody's got a question. Started a couple years ago when I led with code enforcement officers at a statewide meeting, Florida Association of Code Enforcement Officers over in Orlando. But I had an opportunity to ride along with them a couple weeks ago, and I got to tell you one thing that I don't want you to take for granted is what an incredible job the code enforcement officers and your chief have done in this community. I'm an outsider here, but I go to a lot of communities, and I rarely see such a command of their job as these folks have. What is their job? It's that they've identified properties that have violations on them. Go to a lot of places, you see a lot of boarded up buildings, broken glass, trash all over the place. There's not a lot of that here when you drive around, and they're to be commended for that. We drove around, we went into some areas that maybe were a little bit rough, but their outreach with the people in the community showed to me a real sensitivity for what they were dealing with. But importantly, you saw a lot of new windows. I mean, I was really struck with the amount of new windows and new roofs that were out there, and a lot of that has to do with the outreach that I think they've done. So I call it comply, collect, and close. There is a problem within code enforcement, and that is you've got these officers that are out there working hard, trying to bring things into compliance, and you got property owners that just decide, hey, we don't have to. To tell you a little bit about myself, I started off defending homeowners. I approached this job from the public servant mindset. A mayor in St. Petersburg hired me because they had a code enforcement problem. Lots of liens, lots of money was being spent on bulldozing properties, mowing grass. He said, what can we do to collect it? He said, number one, we got to respect property rights. We got to respect our neighbors. But on the other hand, we got people that aren't respecting the community, and we got to have a balance about that. But to come to it from that perspective is important. I call it active code enforcement. These are pictures from St. Pete, but you will recognize them in Largo and other ones. You'll recognize what happens. Code enforcement officers are out there. They're identifying these properties, and the problem is the property owners just don't want to bring it into compliance. Critical for you folks to understand, state law commands that you have this code enforcement board, mow your grass, clean up the roof, clean up the windows and things like that. But oftentimes it stops, and the enforcement part stops simply because you folks, are not enforcing the lien. The code enforcement officer goes out there and says, if you don't clean it up, we're going to fine you. Go in front of code enforcement board magistrate says, $100 a day or whatever, and then it just gets filed away and forgotten about. The difference about you folks is you've got a real good command, the department, of all of the liens out there, and your officers in particular can look at that lot and say, we've been mowing that grass for 10 years, or that property right there, we demolished it 15 years ago. Well, now this is a tool that allows you to come and collect that money. I'll just roll right over to that last part there, Doge. Y'all heard about that? Doge in Florida? We all heard about it, right? There's a concept that when citizens, taxpayers are owed money, in this case these liens, that you folks are in command of collecting that money. And that's a huge part about what this is. All around this community, as we drove around, I saw foundations where properties have been demolished 5-10 years ago. There's a cost to taxpayers about that. The key component of this is getting that money back. If you ran a report, you'd find that there's a couple $100,000 at least in money owed where, the house burned down, the people went away. You put out a contract to demolish it, $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is, and there's a lien against that property. The key part of this is the city is going to collect that money, and they're going to put it up on the public auction site and allow other neighbors to bid on it in a truly transparent, completely open process. If the next door neighbor likes that house, great, bid with somebody from across town or across state or whatever, and be part of that process. But the idea that going back and getting that money is a critical part of your role is important. They pointed out multiple lots where they've been mowing it over and over again. He mentioned one of them that your contractor, I think he said $500 or something like that. It's a heck of a contract you have with this guy mowing the grass. But the bottom line is you should not be the lawn mowing service for these properties that's happening repetitively. So this process is collecting that money back from the property owner. What ones do you go after? Well, a lot of vacant lots, abandoned buildings. He showed me one right next to an elementary school, beautiful single-family house that the windows are blown out of. There needs to be a family living in that house. And the way there's going to be a family living in that vacant house is City Sebring's going to pull a foreclosure case to say we want to collect the money that we've spent to take care of this, mow the grass, and now 3 months from now, 4 months from now, the public's going to be able to bid on that house. So you want vacant or abandoned ones that have a lot of accumulated fines, and a critical one, non-responsive owner. I guess last year she sent out letters at your direction, didn't get much response from the people. So these are people that are clearly not participating in the process. What's going to happen? These are a really good case study. City St. Pete had been mowing and pulling out garbage for years, actually, on this particular thing. And within 7-8 months or so, new house on it, new homeowner living in there. All over the state, I've been from the East Coast over to Longboat Key to Fort Pierce, where I have done that. This is important. How long will it take? You identify, say, 10, 20 properties out there where you've been leaning it literally for 10, maybe 20 years. We're going to take a look at those. Key thing is collecting that money that's been spent. And then from the time we file to where it's up on an auction, about 5 months or so. And what you're going to find happening is the moment this starts, people are going to be coming to code enforcement department, want to pay those fines, get it taken care of ahead of time. They'll realize that the city's serious about this now, and they're going to voluntarily come and want to come into compliance. Again, more about the concept of economic development. You've got a sort of tight community center. You got good opportunity to have that growth and housing in the core as opposed to out where you have traffic problems. I'm getting close to wrapping up here, but let me explain one of the key problems. This is a title search. I know that some of you folks have some real estate background, but here's the bottom line. People ask, well, why won't the family step up and take care of this piece of property? The code enforcement has mailed out letters and we can't figure out who actually owns it. This is the big explanation for a lot of these properties. Someone died 30, 40 years ago. They had 4 kids. They didn't put it into probate. So those 4 kids and 2 of them died, and then that got 8 other kids. So literally in some of these things, you have like 16 kids that have an interest in the property. Solving this all becomes my problem. We'll get to the nuts and bolts of what I propose. In all these cities that I've worked in, I front all the costs, the title search, the private investigators to track down all the property owners, the filing fees and everything. And then at the end of the day, deliver clear title either to the city of Sebring or to someone that would bid at it at auction. I said I wanted to be quick. With respect for your time, I welcome any questions about the process.
Is this a typical foreclosure, like if a bank went into a foreclosure, the same kind of process where but it goes to the courthouse steps
100%, and that's
before it doesn't come directly to the city once you get the lien? So-
correct. That's the best, one of the best parts about this is a judge is going to make the decision. So you folks are merely saying, hey, there's liens up against there, but there's going to be a judge that will decide that, you know, property owner was served and the due process rights were respected. All the city of Sebring is doing is saying, hey, we're owed this money. All that other stuff is in front of the judge to make the
Okay.
frankly hard calls.
Good, I like it.
Yes, sir.
What is the trigger for you to start the foreclosure process? Is it number of notices, the dollars accrued?
That's up to you. You
Okay.
could say that on the first notice, because this one's a problem, a green pool, a dangerous building, a roof or whatever, it's a fire hazard. The state law says at 3 months within.
Is it subjective, meaning that each property can be different, or we need to have a,
The law allows you to foreclose at 3 months. You could set a completely subjective / objective process if there's a fire hazard. You know, we've had literally law enforcement that says, look, this is a drug den. I want this one done the moment 3 months ticks over. But frankly, you've got such a universe of properties out there that you've been mowing the grass for 10 years. We talked a little bit about this. You may say that, you know, once it reaches $10,000 owed to the taxpayers, that's when we're going to collect. You could say that, you know, if it's I certainly think if it's a dangerous building, boom, that's when you're starting on immediately. Because you're not going to have some kid that goes into a pool or some homeless person starts a fire or whatever. That's a problem. That could be a trigger.
how many do you think we have on the rolls that fit that category? Like now, just a round number.
How many dangerous buildings?
Yeah.
I would say maybe 4 or 5.
Okay.
Joe Tyler and building addressed our unsecured dangerous buildings very quickly. If we have properties with open septic tanks, that's an immediate notice, and we have emergency meetings where we get them immediate quick. The majority of our problems are long-term maintenance type cases where we've been mowing for years, or we have ongoing minimum maintenance issues that are collecting $100 or $200 or $300 fees.
Okay. How many municipalities do you do this for right now?
They tend to roll off. So I've been up to 10, but you kind of work through an inventory.
So there's an end process. Like you feel
Okay.
like there's a point where you say, okay, I've done my job.
Yeah, I've shared with the chief, and I'm sure with any of you folks. Newport Richie is real similar to you folks in terms of the enforcement model being law enforcement. And you know, we go through a process of start slow, get a couple of them, and then we work through the inventory, and we're done. And I'm on to the next community.
Okay. How, last question, sorry, I'm commandeering the whole
No,
meeting
that's
here.
good.
I wrote down all my questions. How do you get paid?
That's a really important point. Contingency. So the contingency contract provides that the net recovery between 20 and 40% if it goes all the way to appeal. There's nothing out of the city's pocket. Each case I front around $1,000 up to $2,000. That comes out of my pocket. When it goes to auction, for many of these, it's not going to be much, right? But some of them is going to come back and there'll be a 20, 30% recovered on those things, but nothing out of the city's pocket.
Okay.
So, and this is applicable to residential or commercial, right?
All of the above. Yeah.
Okay. And have you seen in the cases where you have worked where this has kickstarted some of these non-compliant owners to self mitigate?
I told the chief and when I met with the city attorney, you know, get ready for people coming to your door because, you know, it's interesting how they all communicate. In every community they've been in, the investor, the flippers, or whatever, they get wise to what's going on and they'll start coming into compliance and start paying and settling those things. So I talked to the chief about make sure you got a settlement process already in place. What is it? Number one, it better all be in compliance. That grass better be mowed, the fences and everything all better be taken care of. Then you can come in and fill out that application and reduce it down under reasonable terms. Chief mentioned it's important. Homestead is a problem, right? So you can't foreclose on homestead property, but we're going to be sensitive. The critical thing is you folks always are in control. So you're going to have somebody that's going to pop up that's got a hard luck story. dad got sick, grandma got sick, or whatever. We weren't aware of this. That's the time when we take the foot off the gas a little bit. We work with the kids, whoever is we're communicating with. They bring it into compliance. You make that one go away. You reserve the actual auction for the people that just aren't listed, and those are the ones that ultimately go to auctions.
So is the control at the code enforcement board or is that at city council?
Code enforcement board's already done their work. They determined the fine is there, $250 a day or whatever. Ultimately, it would be city manager, mayor, whatever policy you decide that we're going to stop and not take that one to auction. Everyone comes through my office and I communicate and have done this for 10 years. We know where you want to work with people and where they're just being non-compliant or not going to. But the critical thing is you always have the ability to take your foot off the gas and let's work this one out versus the other one with non-compliance.
What if there's money owed on the property, like, if you have an apartment building, the guy rents the apartment, don't get much or whatever, and they're constantly written up, but they owe money?
Really good point. So whether it's a mortgage or IRS lien or something like that, that's a technical thing that I have to look at that and decide, hey, there's a $1 million Bank of America mortgage on there, and maybe we won't get anything at auction. But the reality is that's never been a reason to stop our enforcement, because hell, we've got people that are in foreclosure, and we all know those used to drag on forever, right? But the city can leapfrog over that and say, I don't care about Bank of America waiting around on this. We're going to bring this to judgment in 3 months, because I guarantee you, your sitting circuit court judge will put you to the front of the line and bring that property into compliance.
Roland, to your question, we talked about a philosophy of property selection and when these properties should come through this process from lien clearing. Ideally, per statute, you can go at 3 months. We collectively felt that that was very soon. Right now, we've got a process where once the liens are imposed, the owner is notified. They're notified through the due process. They get a notice of hearing. They get a notice of lien. They should be aware of that process, unless it's an absentee type landlord where we can't get a hold of the property owner. At the 1 year anniversary, we're sending reminder letters at the direction of council. We kind of thought that at year 3, for the general property, once we've cleared inventory, that would be the time that we could move this to the process for lien clearing comfortably on a case-by-case basis. Now, the hard luck stories, the life stories that come to the table, obviously we would contend with those individually and deal with them through the process, and opportunities for mitigation where they can bring the property into voluntary compliance. We can work with them as long as they're working with us and maybe avoid the foreclosure process. If they don't or communication stops, we've got the ability, as Matt said, to put our foot in the gas.
That's a really conservative timeline. I don't think we would be hurting anybody by waiting for 3 years, right?
No, and realistically, we've got such a backlog of cases right now that I think, as Matt mentioned, once some of our property owners and our landlords get the idea that this is going, it's moving through the process, and some of these other properties are being foreclosed on, we'll get voluntary compliance as this process is up.
If we get this started and we have this backlog, is there any limitation as to how many we can start at one time? No.
We have got capacity. We've done big counties, little
Okay.
cities, so no.
Because I would imagine the first 6 months is just going to be a lot.
I know the mayor asked this, but for clarification, when would the circumstance be when the city takes ownership of that property, if any?
Great question. Yeah, so the way an auction works is goes onto the auction steps on realistically March 1, 2026. And the judge has said the city is owed $50,000 for mowing the grass and bulldozing and everything else like that. Goes up to auction, but no one bids. So now that property reverts back to the city of Sebring. In every city that I've worked with, we've developed successful programs of turning it over like Habitat for Humanity as an example. We've adopted what's called an angel fund, which is some of that money that comes back in, the city can then use to help a neighbor with a roof or something like that. But we've been very intentional with some properties. So, we looked at some of these vacant lots near the core there, around the church and some other places. And, I mean, these are vacant lots that need to have houses on. And we can pull those back and get them onto the market so you can turn it over to Habitat or whoever else, and allow them to build. It's really helped in the affordable housing stock for some cities.
How successful have you been with working with like a P3 partnership or getting private developers who know that if a city or a property reverts back to the city, that we could work out a deal with them, similar to what we're doing with our CRA and incentivizing individuals to flip these properties and develop them?
So one of the things about this process is it's so transparent that when they're all up in the auction step, if Habitat or any of the other redevelopment or CRA people, I almost, that gets lost in the weeds and the difficulty of making sure you're not favoring or you got any kind of inside deal. The thing that I really like about this is if you've got a partner that wants to invest in the community, the very best thing is to say it's coming up to auction August 1st or whatever. So, you know, we kind of got bogged down in one city because we're trying to qualify these different partners to participate in the affordable housing deal. And I said, just let it all go to auction. You know, if Habitat and there were a couple other builders that wanted to participate in the auction. You know, pay $2,000 for it there and save all the administrative time and all the, you know, favoritism, all that other kind of things. Buy it there.
Okay.
But let's say as an example, in your CRA or whatever, you could intentionally decide, hey, you know, we want to bring in this project, a commercial property or whatever, but we got all these other vacant lots around there. The city could be very intentional and say, hey, let's put those 5 vacant ones into the program so that they can come out within 4 months and go into auction, and maybe this developer that we're otherwise working with, his partners or spin-off people can go there and grab those. But it's the same process where a neighborhood group could come and bid on it as well. I'll tell you, there's 2 that come to my mind. Again, that one house right by the neighborhood, right by the school. It's a beautiful house, block. It's got windows blown out. What your code people told me was, with the rain and everything else like that, this thing's gonna fall apart really quickly, and that's a terrible shame. That's a crying shame. There was another house that was around a corner lot, huge lot, and it had been abandoned. He said that the family members, whoever they were, in fact, said, we don't want anything to do with this. Maybe there was a mortgage on it or whatever else, but over and over again in every city, we've had these circumstances. Literally property owners that say, get me out of this thing. Mom died, I live in New York, I ain't coming back here. This is the way that you can address all of those problems.
So I guess a question for both of you too, and Chief. So a year ago, we did instruct to send out those reminders on an annual basis. It sounds like what Matt's offering too is doing more of the due diligence and follow-ups and connecting with whoever owns the property, having a private investigator, all that. Do we need to consider stopping that process now, knowing that it wasn't as successful as we hoped it to be a year ago with the reminders?
So Matt may have an opinion on that. I think towards the outreach piece for code enforcement, we continue until this program is up and running. There's no harm, no foul. At this point, it's a stamp and an envelope. It's minimal staff time. They're auto-generated on the anniversary date to the lien. I don't think there's any harm whatsoever in continuing that process.
Okay.
In time, I think it'll go away if we roll into a 3-year type program or 2-year type program with this. The reminder letter will be a letterhead from Widener Law Firm. It should take care of it.
Okay.
I'm smiling because I give this presentation all over, including especially the code enforcement officers. And I say, notice, notice, notice. You can never over notice. Florida statute provides a very specific notice that you send certified mail to the registered address there. That half of them come back, they don't answer. But we've done our job by noticing. So the code enforcement board meets, it goes out there, they sent a notice. That's another one. But a critical part of what I do, because the requirement in court now, is private investigators going out. Really, that's that last very formal, and there's a lot of expense involved. That's some of those ones where there's 18 kids and whatever, literally. That could be several $1,000s worth of private investigative expense. But that's my job. That's my burden to bear. I take that responsibility of making sure that we've exhausted every opportunity to find that cousin, 16 times removed, and make sure they know, hey, granddad or whatever had a house in Sebring, and if you want it, come to the table. Let's work something out.
Any other questions or comments from council? Is there anything from the public on this item?
I don't
Yes, sir.
see any negatives.
I would just ask.
Could you come to the podium, sir?
I would just answer, it's great that you're,
To the podium,
studying
sir.
solid flights.
Sorry, you got to introduce yourself for the record.
My name's Anthony Miller. I'm from Highlands County.
I think it's great that you're all addressing blight. It's a very critical issue in many communities. How does it address the blight of the debris that's on people's properties? That's the immediate impact that a visitor or homeowner or an investor sees. And first, how would your program kind of address that kind of blight?
I'll respond to council, and that is that the thing that really got my attention was how thorough these officers were. I mean, it really wasn't a house we drove by. They were not explicitly aware of what the facts are, who they've been nailing to, the cousin six removed. And they're just wasting a lot of their time because they're spinning their wheels. And to answer the citizen's question, when they're able to stop with that wasted effort, they can really focus on those immediate issues of taking care of this one right now. Another kind of spin-off topic of that is, for some of our neighbors, that trash and debris and stuff like that, they just can't get their arms around it, right? Financially, they're hurting or otherwise. In every community that I've worked with, we established an angel fund so that we got a little bit of money to fix the soffit, fix the roof, fix the whatever, but will allow, look, knowing how intense these code enforcement officers are in their connection for that house that he's talking about with the junk all over the place, I think they can go in there and maybe it's hire that contractor to come and help pick that stuff off immediately. I hope that was responsive to the citizen's question.
It is all the debris that is sitting on the property itself. Abandoned appliances, piles of garbage at the end of the driveway. I mean, it's very unsightly. It doesn't look good for the city.
Well, and for the elected and your officials, you have the tool, code enforcement. This merely puts the enforcement part of that. So you are going to have examples of where people have just gotten accustomed to not having to respect their neighbors or the law that you have. I promise you that all ends immediately once this stops. There's no arguing with the circuit court judge. It's going to say, I've heard from the neighbors. I know what's going on here, and we're not going to tolerate it anymore.
Yes, sir.
Christopher Tuffley. I had a case, my sister, we didn't realize how ill she was. And she had become a hoarder. And you walk into that house, and in fact, I'm having to sell it because it's going to cost about $60 or more. I mean, it doesn't have a kitchen anymore, it doesn't have a bathroom. So when you're dealing with mental illness.
So a great point, because this is an issue. This kind of hoarding, that sort of situation is a mental illness, and we have to understand it as such. And that's where the sensitivity of the community comes in. So in that circumstance, again, we kind of take the foot off the gas a little bit. Over and over again, I have referred to other attorneys that maybe they got to open up a probate to find the relative to come in and help. But that's where the servant heart and the sensitivity of this comes in, and we work that circumstance out. So, we've got people that are just completely ignoring because they can get away with it. We have other people that need a little helping hand. Understanding the difference between those two is a key.
Anything else from the public on this?
One point from the contract that I think bears mentioning, in the situation where there are no bidders at the public sale after the foreclosure and the city takes title to the property based on what's called a credit bid, the percentage recovery that would be due Mr. Widener's firm is based on the assessed value of the property according to the property appraiser's determination. So depending on the value, it could be expensive. Of course, the city has the ability to look at that issue and make a conscientious decision of what to send to his firm to handle. I think we should do this. I think I think he's got a great idea. I think the city will be well served by it, but it could be on occasion a situation where that dollar amount can be pretty significant on a particular property.
In theory, it's only a smallish percentage of the assessed value, though. Correct.
Between 20 and 40% is the recovery his firm would receive if they take it all the way through and nobody else bids on it for whatever reason. Nobody else bids.
The only thing I would want to say is I think our code enforcement officers are doing a great job, and this is the part where they can't do anymore, right? We made it to where all they can do, all the code board can do, people that just don't want to comply. So I think this is a great idea.
Yep.
I'm looking forward for Tyler and Joe too. And once we can clear the deck a little bit for them to
Right.
do something other than what they're doing day in and day out with the same properties time and time again.
Okay.
So I think it's a great idea, and I think you have a great attitude for the city too. That we're not just trying to foreclose on anybody and everybody, but having the heart of a servant too to help people, and we want to treat people right and fair.
Any other comments, or if not, I will entertain a motion. Yes, sir.
Jeff Carlson for the record. I just wanted to thank council and Chief Hoagland for pulling this together. I think it's a great step toward having some teeth related to our code enforcement. Two things that I would ask. Annual notification, if compliance is our goal, annual notifications to someone that's not in compliance is not adequate. If it's an automatic system, I would ask that you maybe program that to be monthly or quarterly, so that if the notice gets lost in the mail, someone's not waiting a whole year to get the notice. Maybe that's part of the attorney's process. The second thing is that a lot of debris that's in people's private property is not necessarily placed there by the property owner. So one thing I would ask that perhaps we work with the police department and code enforcement on is enforcement of illegal dumping laws, and helping us with when other people dump. This is a major problem downtown, almost daily, where people dump illegal trash, piles of it on our property, that we do something to stop them, especially if we know who they are that are dumping it. Thank you.
All right. Unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we direct staff to retain attorney Matt Winder, legal service for code enforcement, lien clearing.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Kathy, can you call roll, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Colchester.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
All right, so next on the agenda is business from the audience. We've got several tonight. As a reminder, public comment is limited to 3 minutes, please. So when you get up here, please introduce yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes. First up, Ms. Kelly Dressel.
Good
My
evening.
name is Kelly Dressel. I am the executive director for the Children's Museum and host of the Children's Business Fair. So I know at least the mayor got to come and visit our fair on Sunday. But the reason I'm here is because I wanted to at least extend a big thank you to the city. On Tuesday, we realized that the weather may not be cooperative, which of course it was. But if I hadn't made that decision, that would have, we just didn't know what the weather was going to do. And when you're dealing with children, it's different for an adult vendor who's watching the weather and everything. But when you have 51 kids' businesses that you're responsible for, strolled down North Ridgewood, we just couldn't take that chance. So I made a phone call to the city, and Scott was amazing. He talked to me immediately, and Robin at the front desk walked me through the process. We were able to secure the Civic Center. And what was great about it is, God bless them, that was plan B. And I kept saying, we might not need it. And I know that's really difficult because we're trying to put everything in place, but he really worked with me. Probably rolls his eyes at me a little bit because I'm a little chaotic at times and hyper. But it was really just a pleasure working with the city offices. And then I'd like to give a special shout out for Toby with Public Works. God bless him as well, who had to deal with me for 2 weeks while we were trying to figure out where to put the stage and where to put this and that. And then none of that mattered because we moved to the Civic Center, and he was just wonderful in every aspect. So just being proactive, helping me, making phone calls to me. I brought signs out, and Toby called me almost immediately and said, these aren't right, which I appreciate. Who knew 1 foot would matter with what goes up above the city circle sidewalks, but it will be a mistake I will not make next year. But I do appreciate the leniency and just a little bit of care. The kids did a great job, and if you didn't get to come, I know some of you have been our judges. I'll be coming up to ask for judging again. Never again, I know. Once you're a judge, you never have to do it again. You are clear slate. John's not allowed to do it because he gives everyone a 10.
They're all great
That's not how
kids.
judges works. But it was a spectacular event. We had 68 kids participate, 51
Oh my
businesses that actually were ready to go.
It was a
that
great
day.
event this year.
And
was
it
packed.
was,
I think there were 20 when I judged.
yeah, it's rough now because these kids are really going to be our up and coming business leaders. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
All right, next up, Mr. Anthony Miller to talk about Carter Hall.
Good afternoon, Council. I came up here this evening because I want to express my concerns about some takeaways that I saw at the last meeting regarding Carter Hall. A couple of them is that the people that went and donated that property to the city, I think their intention was to give back to the community, and I think that they would not want that property to be a burden for this community as it has been for years. Okay, and cooperating with the Harder Hall so that Harder Hall is only going to work with that golf course for it to be really a 5-star destination. Okay, for our county. Okay, and I would really hate to see him back out of this. And another takeaway I took from the meeting was that after all those months of discussing the matter with them, that you would bring it to the table to take a vote on it. But when Mr. Blackman was here to kind of explain some of the things that you still had issues with about drainage, etc., I don't understand why none of that was kind of like resolved prior to it. And then one of the council members did bring up about tabling it, and I was a little surprised. It seems like the entire council pretty much made up their mind prior to coming to the meeting that night. And so I'm just asking you all to reconsider about working with Mr. Blackman. I mean, this is not everybody, you don't get too many people walking into town with the willingness and the money to be able to do this job. And it's a huge lift. And this Carter Hall is really an important pillar for this community. Okay, it is a huge asset. I can't understate that enough. And you all know how long it's been abandoned. And so I'm asking you to reconsider what your thought process is. Get back to the table with Mr. Blackman, call him up and say, listen, let's get this taken care of. I think many jobs that the council has, two of them is you want to improve the quality of life for your citizens. And number two is you want to increase your tax base to support basic services, like the officers that were here earlier tonight, or the tax increase that was on the water bill and utilities, whatever it may be. You're always striving to get an extra ordinance officer to be on the job, to be able to get your community in more compliance in dealing with the blight that you see every day. Well, that's part of it, and having the agility
20
to be able
seconds,
to
sir.
work with you. Okay. Agility to work with Mr. Blackman. Let's get this plan back on place. It seemed like it went off track. Let's get back on track. Let's get this going so that we can all benefit from it. Not only for the city of Sebring, but for all of Highlands County. Thank you.
All right. Next up, Mr. Jeff Carlson to talk about the golf course.
I actually made notes, Jeff Carlson for the record. That's perfectly timely that came up. I wanted to start by thank John. I reclaimed my first 5 seconds. I wanted to start by thanking the 4 of you that voted for accountability, transparency, and your fiduciary duty in this regard. Mr. Blackman didn't start this process off with good intentions. He didn't start it off in good faith, and you guys stood up for the citizens of the city of Sebring. And despite what you see on social media, we appreciate it, we love it, and we're proud that you did it. I was surprised that there were prior council members that got up and argued literally against accountability and transparency. That was shocking to me, and I thought it was sad. I'm here tonight because I think you put forth the RFP. They're putting together the RFP process right now, and I'll try to come back to that, but I was out of town for the last one. But I want you guys to start thinking out of the box a little bit. The original gift of that property was not intended to be given to a private developer to profit from it. And let's be honest, if anyone's going to make money off the donation, they keep saying sale online, the donation of that property, it's Mr. Blackman. That's it. No one else will benefit from it. What they wanted was a place that's beautiful, that the citizens of the city of Sebring and surrounding areas can enjoy and use for the rest of their lives. I want to show you a map, Scott, if you wouldn't mind passing that around. I want you to start thinking about the recreational opportunities that you have there, and not the value of that land today, but the opportunity cost of the potential giving away of that land today. And what you'll do as city of Sebring continues to grow to the south and to the west, if you gave away 100 acres of land and 10 years from now had to buy 100 acres of land somewhere in order to provide the recreational opportunities that are already maxed out at Max Long. I give you that for perspective so that I can cover that in a second. We travel a lot, and a lot of our travel is walking around cities. And one of the things we enjoy most is visiting parks within those cities. For perspective in this, sorry, I only have 3 minutes. For perspective here, I want you to look at the Max Long Recreational Park. That's approximately 30 acres. You could take the entire Max Long Park and make 3.5 of those on this land. You could also take the 3 acres that make up soccer fields and put it on one fairway of this golf course. You could easily cover that. You could partner with FERDAP, RPAC, all of the agencies that help the entire county grow and build these recreational opportunities. You already have approximately 4 miles,
20 seconds,
4 miles of trails, golf cart trails on that could currently be open for passive recreation for hikers, walkers, bird watchers, cyclists, people that want to get out and exercise and recreate. You already have disc golf on that facility that you could expand and work with private investors to build on. So I just ask that you leverage that, think outside the box, and think about the potential benefit to this community for the next 100 years for us, not for a developer.
Thank you. All right. Last up, Mr. Fred Carino to talk about the Navy's 250th birthday.
Good evening.
Good evening. All right.
I retired from the Navy 31 years ago, and some people still think I served with John Paul Jones. The Navy's coming up on its 250th birthday, which is actually going to be Monday the 13th. But we thought we'd throw a birthday party on Saturday the 11th. It'll be from 10 to 5. We've got free cake and ice cream. We've got a bounce house. We've got what's the thing where you throw the bag in the hole? Oh, we have cornhole. Yeah. And we have a dunk tank, and I was hoping we could get some volunteers to be in the dunk tank. We'll be raising money for the disabled American veterans. So if anyone wants, we don't want anybody to wear Speedos though. So no Speedos in the dunk tank. You may not know, but Steel Beach Picnic is a unique Navy cultural thing. If you can imagine an aircraft carrier with 5,000 people on board, and they've been working hard, and you stop in the middle of the ocean, and you put the elevators down near the water, people go swimming with the sharks, and then up on the flight deck, you've got barbecues, people are fishing and catching fish and cooking them on the barbecues. It's a day to let your hair down. I used to do it when I had hair. But it's kind of a let your hair day down, and so we're asking. We're glad that you could have us here tonight, but you're all invited. Scott, bring your kids, and it'll be a good time. Free food, free burgers, dogs. We promise not to burn the hamburgers to a crisp, and free ice cream and cake. So come on down, celebrate your Navy. You might not know this, but the Navy's been in combat for the past 24 months in the Red Sea. Did you know that? We've been fighting the bad guys for 24 months. Guys and gals are actually getting medals for combat. But anyway, good. Thanks for letting me talk to you, and I hope to see you down there, and y'all too. Come on down.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to jump to item number 12A. Mr. Swain.
12A is ordinance number 1556, and it's entitled an ordinance annexing approximately 27.15 acres of land located on Sunnyland Drive, Martin Luther King Boulevard, and Bossy Watson Avenue in Government Lot 8, Section 20, Township 34 South, Range 29 East, Highlands County, Florida, into the city of Sebring, Florida, and establishing an effective date. This is on your agenda for second and final reading. I'll note for you attachment 4 to your materials is an objection that the county, Highlands County staff sent to the city. The county, one of the things they would like is for the city to start taking more of the road maintenance obligation away from the county, so the county doesn't have to spend money on that. This annexation is necessary for the city to move forward to use the property it just purchased to build the utilities and whatever other facilities you decide to put on that lot, so that we would encourage you to move forward with the annexation.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? Any from the public? I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 1556 on second final reading.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Kathy, can you call the roll, please?
I have a question, because I have to send this to the state, and record it tomorrow. So it goes as is, I mean, does that
Yes, ma'am.
mean anything with the objection? I mean, does that not change anything with this? I'm just asking.
The ordinance will be presumably approved as is with no changes.
So I don't need to do anything different? Okay.
Correct.
All right, sorry. Bishop,
Yes.
Carline,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Oversight.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. All right, item number 12B is being pulled from the agenda. So we are going to move on to item 13A, city administrator's business and Women's Club property.
Good evening, council. So, within the past 2-3 weeks, I had received a local inquiry about the Women's Club property and potential purchase of said property. So staff is looking for council direction in reference to this. You had priorly given us some direction that you'd like to see this property perhaps RFP'd. I've enclosed agenda item summary for when we purchased the property, or attached that to the agenda item summary, and minutes from the May 21st, 2019 meeting where council at that time talked about all kinds of different options for that property, everything from the city creating perhaps a second civic center, if you will, to, RFPing the property out, to demolishing the property, which when we purchased it was, I think the original intent was to create additional parking at Veterans Beach. So staff's looking for your guidance as to what you all would like us to do. If you'd like us to go ahead and publish an RFP, get some responses, bring them back to council, what would you like us to do?
Okay. Any questions or thoughts from council?
I think we ought to do an RFP on it and see what kind of action we get. I do know one person, somebody's interested in using it. I think it hurts.
Scott, if we wanted to move forward with an RFP, do you need a lot of details tonight, or is that something we would be working out a framework for our approval later?
So, I think what I'd like to know is are you looking for an RFP for purchase and or lease? That would be a major item that we would need to know, I think, out front in order to draft the RFP. Property boundaries, if you will. Currently, the Women's Club, if you look at it kind of proper, you got the Women's Club and you got the parking lot to the right. That's probably what we would envision being in the RFP, as opposed to the parking lot that's on the left of the Women's Club, which currently kind of serves as an overflow for Veterans Beach. If you'd like to do that, or if you want to get to me later and let me know what it is that you'd like to see in the RFP, we can incorporate.
I think a lease.
So I would agree. I like the idea of a long-term lease. The only, I think this was mentioned in our workshop, there's heartburn over parking, right? And the city having the ability to use it. My thought on that, and I like y'all's opinion, is a long-term lease that whoever the winner of the RFP is, could have shared use of the parking, but not exclusive. Meaning, the city could still use it for overflow. If it gets filled up on the 4th of July, well, that's okay. Whoever is in control is not towing vehicles or anything like that. Just shared use, but not exclusive.
Would you allow
use.
them a certain number of dedicated parking spots? Or
I think that
the
would be
entire thing is free
appropriate.
range?
I don't know.
Well, we bought that house and tore it down next to it to expand the parking because we have issues on holiday weekends and that stuff, so. I don't know how you would block off a portion of the parking lot, so you can't park here. I think it's a first come, first served type basis, but and I think really, depending who goes in there, it's a few weekends a year that it's packed.
Right.
It gets busy, but it's still, I think the use of the parking lot, and actually, what we ought to look at doing somewhere down the road is take that grass lot and turn it into
Parking.
marked parking lot, because everybody parks 6 different ways a Sunday on that lot.
Right.
And at some point in time, I think we just need to improve that section, especially if somebody does put a tiki bar in there, or a restaurant, or an outfitter place. I think it's and there's room in front too, that maybe if it becomes an issue, that can also become part of the parking too. So, and the other thing that we have to look at, especially if we do put an active parcel in there, is road control. How do we slow people down to come, put a crosswalk there with the flashing lights that they, push the button and when it goes on, because
Yeah.
it gets busy on the weekends.
Like they would at the beach or,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
Right.
I mean, we've
So-
had residents asking for that already. I
Yeah.
don't think it'd be a bad idea.
for sure.
I think it's, so.
Yeah, I think that, honestly, that crosswalk could use one now.
Yeah, definitely. But if you do put somebody in there that's active, you're gonna really need something in there, because you're gonna have families going back and forth, so.
I also wanted to just remind council that, obviously that building, and I've taken, I think, each of you for a tour, or been on a prior tour of the building, is gonna need some significant improvement. The restrooms are gonna have to be converted to ADA restrooms or some type of new restroom created. There is a kitchen in there, but that kitchen's not gonna serve from a commercial perspective.
Right.
The
There's significant
need,
investment.
it's gonna need, hood system or something like that, if there's gonna be a restaurant that goes in there. I just wanted to put that out there so that anybody that might be looking knows that there's some significant investment into this property. It's not gonna come cheap, I don't think.
And you can negotiate that long-term investment into the lease also. If you're charging $50 a square foot, and just charge half of that.
Mr. Carino, you'd like to speak? Come on.
I don't know if it's serendipity. My name is Fred Carino. I live at 4241 Lakeview Drive, across the street from the old women's club, the old Sebring Women's Club. And I see the use of Veterans Beach Park every day, every night. And in fact, I want to thank the council and the city manager for making the huge improvements in that city park. It is quite spectacularly better than it used to be 32 years ago when we moved there. But I didn't know you considered demolishing the building and just increasing parking. Having listened to a lot of wedding receptions and after night parties there, I think a parking lot expansion is probably the best and highest use of that property now.
What would you sell your house for? You'd have to move that big boat, though. Okay.
Okay. Yes, but again, I see that park, and on every weekend, and when it's warm, the entire parking areas are full. There is inadequate number of spaces for boat trailer parking. And so I think the population, the park seems to be more and more popular all the time. And especially during holiday times, it's totally overfull. So to me, parking sounds good. I don't necessarily look forward to a tiki bar being there, but that's my input. And if you do want to go ahead with an RFP, I think you ought to have a public hearing and get input from the residents in that vicinity. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or comments from council?
I agree with you and Leonard. A long-term lease, I don't want to see us lose ownership of the property. And if nothing comes back with the RFP, I think a good idea would just be making it to parking. I don't want to do what prior council did and just do nothing for many years, but let's move on it one way or the other.
I just don't want to see the city putting in a bunch of money into the building either. So whatever comes from the RFP needs to be self-sufficient.
Yeah, my thought is if we make the lease long enough and attractive enough, that it would make that investment worthwhile.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from council? Any questions or comments from the public on this? Okay, so we need some sort of a motion or direction. Is that right, Scott?
Make a motion that we direct staff to produce the RFP for the woman.
I'm sorry, I draft an RFP and what?
For the
women's
club. I instructing staff to initiate an RFP for the women's club.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Kathy?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Cambridge.
Yes.
Colshire,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. All right, we're going to move on to item number 13B, City Manager's Project Report. Mr. Nate.
So the only really material items on the project report, the government affairs consultant lobbyist was on the consent agenda tonight that you approved. Illinois pondweed in Lake Jackson. Staff and Council President Stewart and Mayor have an appointment with FWC on October 14th on the lake to analyze the problem, if you will. And at that point, subsequent to that, we'll come back with maybe recommendation as to whether we have a workshop or whatever might take place subsequent to that. And then, as you know, we're working on an RFP for the Sebring Municipal Golf Course. We hope to have that to you at a November meeting, hopefully the first meeting in November.
What's if I may, the next step in the Westlake Jackson? What's the next step?
Westlake Jackson, so they've finished engineering all 4 phases. Within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to get easements for phase 2. I have easements for phase 1. And when I say easements, I have the drawn easements that we need to obtain, if you will.
So, okay.
So we need to obtain those easements. There's going to be about 58 in total.
Okay. For the whole project or just phase 1?
For the whole project,
Okay.
for all 4 phases. We won't see the easements, the drawn up easements, probably for a few months for phases 3 and 4. They will be coming back to us probably for some additional funds because they only accounted on the front end for having to do perhaps 30 easements, and
Which phase
double
contains the most easements?
I'm sorry?
Which phase contains the most easements?
So I can't answer that question yet.
The first phase is
First
all
phase
the
is-
outfalls, like the whole for the entire length. Then 2, 3, and 4 are sort of sections of the road.
Okay.
Some of
Go
them
along.
are
And they
temporary
sort of go
construction easements.
uphill, upstream,
right,
from the outfalls.
And some of them are permanent easements. I want to say in the first round, we're probably 12 to 16 in phase 1. Don't yet know what phase 2 easements are going to look like.
Saga continues.
Maybe by the time your term's over.
Oh,
We'll
please.
start.
2 years? No.
Sorry.
I won't see this one.
All right. Anything else for Scott? Okay. We're gonna move on to last but not least, city clerk.
Paying the bills, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Call roll, please.
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Avery.
Yes.
Holstaff,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. All right. This meeting is adjourned.